Hey everybody, welcome. Hey, I want to ask you a question as we start off this week's video. Have you ever driven by a house where even as a layperson, you've looked at someone's front yard planting scheme and you just kind of shake your head and just go, what the heck were they thinking? You know, why did they put those there of all places? Have you ever had that situation? I'll tell you what. I sure have, and many, many times over. Some where even I've seen fellow professionals install stuff and I shake my head and go, wow, that's different. And you try to be politically correct? Yeah, well, I've been there too. Hey, this week we delve into a topic of landscape theory and philosophy that maybe you've heard of and maybe you haven't. It has a little bit of a buzzword feel to it, but we're going to be talking about the 3 R's of landscape design. And that is the right plant in the right place for the right reason. So I am super glad you're here, super stoked that you joined me during this holiday season. So if you would, Maestro, roll the intro, please. Hey everyone, I'm Matt and you can call me Coach. Hey, every week I bring to you landscape tips and tricks and design concepts in an easy to understand format so you can go out there as a self-reliant homeowner, tackle projects you want, especially get the results you want to see, and do it at a fraction of a professional cost. You know, after a 20-plus year career as a self-employed landscape designer, landscape contractor, educated in ornamental horticulture, a retail nursery manager, and a California certified nurseryman, I bring with me a lot of real-time work in the business, knowledge and experience that you can use that I want to share with you, today's new self-reliant homeowner. Hey everybody, welcome. You know something? As a wee lad many, many years ago, at the ripe old age of 19 years, I was spotted by a retail nursery manager. He happened to be living in a park, a mobile home park, that I was working in. I was in charge of all the maintenance, the ground maintenance there. He took a liking to me for whatever reason at age 19 and offered me a job. He offered me a job at the nursery he was managing, and that chain happened to be called Navalets Nursery. And Navalets was a small chain of nurseries in the San Francisco East Bay area. I think they're called Sloats now. They got bought out. But I was in the Fremont store, and I accepted his offer and showed up. And at the ripe old age of 19, the only real green knowledge I had about landscape was I could mow a lawn really well, and I could turn a bush into a box or a ball without any problem whatsoever. And that was about the limit of my horticultural knowledge at the time. Well, I did get hired there, and as I started my green career at the retail level, they took that little wee lad of 19 and molded and shaped me into a young, but knowledgeable, California certified nurseryman. And at that point, I, at age 19 or 20, started designing people's yards. And I learned so much from that place. Almost everything that I know today, I gained from, yes, classroom education in college, but also from Navalets and the mentors that were there. Thank you, J.C. Burns. I know he's probably not with us any longer. You know, when I was there at Navalets, I enrolled in the local community college and took many, many, many ornamental horticulture classes. And that is where, in a combination of Navalets and community college, where I got the 3 R's drummed into me. And I do mean drummed. You know, you had tests and quizzes on the 3 R's all the time and what the difference was. Well, that's what I'm here to share with you today. Those 3 R's of landscape design and philosophy. Many, many years later, when I decided to start my own landscape and design and construction business, I saw many of my, shall we say, lesser educated competition out there were doing some of these plant placements and planting schemes that, based on my education and experience, seemed a little bit off. Now, don't get me wrong here. This is not an elitist statement in any way, shape, or form. It's just an observation. I mean, when you're putting a 10-foot mock orange at the corner of someone's house, and the house is only, 15 feet off the sidewalk, you kind of wonder. It must have just been, I got them on sale. Well, I did make some friends in the business, and I remember going to one of my friend's job sites one time, and he had a planting scheme that he came up with. It wasn't a professional design or an architectural design. And he was putting some plants in places that I kind of said, we'll call him Joe. Joe, why are you putting those plants there? It seems like they're going to outgrow and get a little too big, and they're going to be crunched together, and you've got this tree that's eventually going to shade these sun plants that you have there. And Joe turned to me and said, I'll never forget it. He turned to me and says, I really don't care, Matt. I can't see it from my house. And I just kind of shook my head. And we kind of went back and forth a little bit in a fun kind of way, but it was serious. People are paying this guy thousands of dollars, and he's putting plants in that were kind of questionable. So I said, well, you wouldn't stick a king-size mattress in your kitchen just because it fit. You're not going to have much room to do anything else. Am I right? And old Joe just looked at me, and you could just see his gears were just grinding and trying to figure out what I just said. Anyway, enough of story time. Let's delve into those 3 R's, shall we? Let's look at our first R, and that is the right plant. So when we talk about the right plant, we're basically talking about a proper sizing to start off with. In the plant world, especially the ornamental horticultural plant world, there are many, many cultivars of various genuses or families within those plants. If you look at Pittosporum or Nandina or certain ferns or trees, there's all kinds of various cultivars with each one of those families. You'll have something that'll grow 50 feet tall, or maybe you'll have a cultivar dwarf that only goes 20 feet tall. A citrus tree like a grapefruit that wants to grow 25 feet, 30 feet tall and 30 feet wide, or a semi-dwarf or a genetic dwarf that only goes 6 to 8 feet tall and wide. So there's all kinds of things. So when we talk about the right plant, we want to also think about its environment that you're going to be putting it in. You don't want to put a sun plant in a deep shade area, and vice versa. So many times when you're talking about the right plant, you have to think it out just a little bit. I have seen many DIYers go out there, and what they want to do is they see something in the neighbor's yard and they just love it, they have to have it. So they run down to the local nursery or box store or whatever, and they grab it and they put it in. Oh, thank goodness I got it. But maybe it was a Chinese fringe flower that is the regular Purple Majesty, and it's going to go 10 feet tall and 10 feet wide. And they're putting it in the little corner of their backyard that has a 3-foot bed, and now you're going to have this monster trying to do what nature intended for it to do, and you're having to sit there and butcher it and butcher it and butcher it and butcher it all the time to keep it in the bounds of your bed that you're asking this 10 by 10 plant to try and perform in. You'll often see some of this in what I like to refer to as production front yards, landscape production front yards. And you'll see those in some of the newer residential developments around the country and world, where the builder or developer themselves has had an architect draw up front yard landscaping for them. And a landscaper will come in and plant these landscapes, and yet the plant selection is somewhat questionable. Not the right cultivars used. And I've come in many times after about 2 to 3 years, and I've seen these plants that were meant to be backdrop plants or other things. And they're just literally, there wasn't a theme. There wasn't a real intense thought process used in order to put the right plant in there. Wrong cultivar, wrong colors, etc. So when it comes to the right plant, one of the suggestions I always like to make is take a few minutes, go to your local nursery, take a couple pics with your phone and go with, And then when you get there, find someone who is knowledgeable, maybe an on-staff designer, maybe a certified nursery person, or someone who really is in the business and knows what plants can do in the right places. Sit down and talk with them. Explain the situation of your landscape makeover. Tell them the plants that you like. And then once you get good, knowledgeable, professional answers given to you, you're shown the plants that will work in the area that you want, then by God, don't be a creep. Don't go running off down to Walmart because you're going to save a couple of bucks, okay? You now have a professional in your pocket that you can go back to over the next who knows how many years. And as long as you're a good and valued customer, you've bought your plants and materials there, that professional is going to help you out. You put a little bread and butter on their table and they've put some knowledge in your head so that you get the right results you want, the right plant, okay? So remember, use the professional resources that are out there. Okay, so let's move on to our second R. We talked about the right plant. Now we're going to talk about the right place. And when I'm talking about the right place, we're talking about placement within the beds itself and next to certain plants that really amp up the final results. If you happen to be a person who's fortunate enough to have a very large yard, we'll just say a half acre. That's a pretty good sized residential yard in this day and age. And you have a backyard where you have the ability to have big, deep, wandering beds and a big lawn area if you choose, and big entertainment area on a patio with a cover and all that other stuff. Those big, deep beds need to be filled and need to be filled correctly. So you're going to use the right placement of your right plant in those beds. And the way I like to look at it is a tiered effect. If you have a bed that is 15 to 20 feet deep, that's a pretty good sized bed, but you have to fill it so that it looks proper. And what I'd like you to consider as far as this is having what we call a layered, tiered, or stepped effect in the bed, where you have lower frontal plantings down in the front next to the edging of the lawn or whatever you have in front. Then you have your middle filler plants that fill up the middle of the bed and complement what's in front and also complement what's going to be in the back. And then you have your backdrop plants. These are basically your curtains or your walls of your outside yard, if you get what I'm saying. Maybe you're going to have a screen of emerald arborvitae. And in front of that, you're going to have filler plants that are maybe some are evergreen, some are deciduous, some bloom in July, others bloom in September, or maybe you have them bloom together because the contrasting flowers look so nice. And then you have your frontal plantings, like I mentioned, that are always going to be your wow factor, sort of, because it'll either be perennials or some annuals, maybe a flowering ground cover, any number of things. So you have that landscape, that fence bed or a foundation bed that takes the viewer's eye from the bottom and just raises it right up to the back fence. And that's where, if you've ever been at retail nurseries, you'll always see their end caps that are tiered and stepped with the plant material that's on there. So the viewer, customer, is looking at it not just from one flat plane of a bunch of old gold junipers, but they're on a tiered step, and they're just literally displayed for your pleasure and your buying ability, okay? So think about placement. So the right place also can surround another theory too, and that is plant focal points. And you may go out there and find the plant of the century for your yard. It's maybe a fancy Japanese maple or a wandering blue atlas cedar that you're going to put in a big, huge backyard bed. That focal point or that focal feature is going to be a centerpiece for your landscape. And you're going to accentuate that focal point with coalescing other plants that really complement your focal point. Maybe you're going to put a couple of spotlights on it at night so it lights it up. Maybe that focal point is in conjunction with a hardscape focal point, like a water feature or a sitting area or any number of things. But think about the focal points of a right place for the plant that you want. I did this a lot of times for folks where the environment that I was landscaping in allowed me to put things like a real bright Japanese maple, or a real unique shaped Japanese maple, or the blue Atlas cedar that I mentioned, or maybe it was the fall color area where I'm going to put a selection of Sasanqua camellias, or bright red fall colors like euonymus burning bush or Gulfstream nandina or something like that. Real focal points, and then those focal points complemented everything else that was around it. All right, let's move into our third and final R, and that is for the right reason. Okay, so you can see kind of a pattern here, and all those, a little bit of redundancy goes along with these three R's. They're also very, very separate. And our third and final R is the right reason we place stuff. So when we talk about the right reason, we're generally adhering to a purpose-driven theory. And when I say that is, if you take plant A, you put it in place A, and you're doing it for reason A, and they all match. Here's some for instances. Number one would be like outdoor screens or walls for privacy effect. Maybe you have a raised deck area, and your south-facing fence looks, with you sitting on the deck, you look right into the pool area of your next door neighbor. And maybe they haven't done anything about it, but you feel uncomfortable with that always being on display when you're enjoying your deck. So you're going to come up with some type of a fence or a screen so that it gives you some privacy and them some privacy as well. So that would be one reason that we do things like that. How about something like shade production? Maybe you're in an area that come July, your backyard is like a furnace, and it's almost impossible to sit out there unless you create some shade production. And that can come from greenscape, properly selected for the area, shade trees that are maybe deciduous, and so you get the shade production that you want. You know, another reason that you might use certain plants for a certain reason, and it's something that I adhere to a lot, is wildlife attraction. You know, you can plant material that brings in your hummingbirds, brings in your butterflies, brings in frogs and salamanders with the use of water features. You can use a purpose-driven planting scheme that will basically set you up for wildlife success. You may have a big suburban ranch area, and you plant some berry brambles that bring in rabbits and quail and stuff like that. And I saw that in a landscape that I did once. Purposely built huge brambles, and that guy had more rabbit and more quail on his property. It was wonderful to see. Although number 4 kind of goes along with number 1 in the plant reason category, but maybe you want to frame a particular view of something that you see from your backyard. Maybe there's a lake, maybe there's mountains off in the distance. Maybe you're lucky enough to live on the ocean, and you want to frame the ocean, but you want to protect it from the winds and that kind of stuff. So the right reason goes along with the right selection, okay? Also, maybe you have some concealment issues. You've got a manufacturing plant that is behind your back fence, or a grade school, and maybe you just want a little more privacy when you're back there. So concealment of certain views on the outside. Hey, take a look at that one video that I did. I'll put a link right here as far as views in the landscape. Another reason might be for environmental control. And when I speak to that, I'm talking about maybe wind and snow breaks. You know, I traveled to northern tier states this summer, and I saw all kinds of wind and snow breaks that people had planted on their ranches. And we're not talking a few feet, we're talking acres long, with evergreens, both plant material and conifer and evergreen material, that would slow the wind down as it approached their house and their property, and went with that blowing wind, the blowing snow that also came along with it. So a purpose driven to create a much more environmental friendly in the adverse times of winter. Another reason might be you're a color hound. And when I say color hound, you love colors. And throughout your new landscape, you have purposely thought about color spots throughout the yard, whether it be in containers or whether it be dedicated beds along walkways or along the back patio or your entry to your front door. It makes you happy. People compliment you about it, and the sole reason you did it is because it brings you joy. And it's not the entire landscape, it's just accented color spots. So think about that as well. And finally, we're going to talk about secondary planting reasons. And when I say secondary, you may have a piece of property that you've bought that has like a huge juniper tree or a huge sycamore or a stand of conifer. And your whole reason you're going to leave those in place is because that's where your kid's treehouse is going to go. And after the kids are done with it, it's going to be mama's she shed or your man cave later on. So another reason, but a secondary reason, that we leave some things in place. So now, using those 3R principles, this is what professional designers do every day, every single day of their work career. It is their job as a professional designer to bring all those things together so it makes sense. Not such an easy task after you start thinking about it, huh? I know as a designer, when I went out and consulted with people, if they hired me, I would spend 2 hours or more just sitting and discussing and mostly listening to what these people wanted. And then, if it all made sense, then I would see the environment of which I'm going to design for. What's the exposure? What time of day or afternoon or evening could I get there to see the shade and sun shadows that were created? And then going back to the drawing board and drawing something that not only pleased them as far as their wants, likes, and dislikes, but also would fit the environment and fit the yard and all kind of coalesce together. That was my job. So there you go, a small peek into the 3 R's of landscape design philosophy and theory. I hope you got a little bit out of it, and I hope I gave it to you in increments that is digestible and easy to understand. Take these and some of the other elements, theories, and practices that I've given to you in some of the other videos and use them. You know, check out the other YouTube videos that I made on views, on preparing a landscape project, inspiration, commitment and dedication, all the things that go along with once you undertake one of these, you know exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Hey, I'm Matt, and you can call me Coach. I sure have appreciated that you've stayed till the end of the video. I hope you got something from it. I really, really do. Hey, check out my plant of the week this week. I hope that your holiday has been an absolute great one, whether that be a nice quiet day at home, or some people just like one of those rip-roaring family get-togethers, or maybe something a little different and in between. Maybe you're traveling within the boundaries of your state or country and enjoying Christmas in a different fashion. I will be here next Friday, as always. Check out the podcast this week and other weeks. I hope you enjoy those if you're on the go and you can't watch the video itself. And next week, we're going to take a look at another subject, and I'll give you a sneak peek at that right now. And I'll leave you with this. If you're using these winter months productively and you're starting to really get jazzed about the landscape project you're going to take in the spring or early summer of 2021, check out a much more intense Yard Coach tool that you can use starting in March of 2021. I have an ebook that's coming out that has all the things that I have learned in the landscaping and construction business at your disposal, and it's Big Brother accompanying it at the same time, and that is the online DIY landscape course. And that is called Homescape 1.0. So check that out in the months to come. I have appreciated being with you guys today. Stay well, take care, and I'll see you next Friday. Goodbye.